Sarinas Trayasmarat Kamivanu Patangitat Anu double atom Dwal 2 Paramanu atoms Syat become Trasareno hexatom Traya 3 Shmitaha considered Jala Aka of sunshine through the holes of a window. Rasmi by the rays of Agataha can be known. Kyameva towards the sky. Anubhatan Akat going up. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki. The division of gross time is calculated as follows. 2 atoms make 1 double atom, and 3 double atoms make a hexatom. This hexatom is visible in the sunshine which enters through the holes of a window screen. One can clearly see that the hexatom goes up towards the sky. Please repeat. The division of gross time is calculated as follows. 2 atoms make 1 double atom, and 3 double atoms make 1 hexatom. This hexatom is visible in the sunshine which enters through the holes of a window screen. One can clearly see that the hexatom goes up towards the sky. The atom is described as an invisible particle, but when 6 such atoms combine together, they are called Trasarenium, and this is visible in the sunshine pouring through the holes of a window screen. Maybe I'll just read a couple more verses. The time duration needed for the integration of 3 Trasarenus is called a Truti, and 100 Trutis makes 1 Veda. 3 Vedas makes 1 lava. There's a small purport again. It is calculated that if a second is divided into 1,684.5 parts, each part is a duration of 1 Truti, which is the time occupied in the integration of 18 atomic particles. Such a combination of atoms into different bodies creates the calculation of material time. The sun is a central point for calculating all different durations. All right, thank you. Any questions? So this is a very technical part of the Bhagavatam. It's describing how in the Vedic system they calculate time, and the instrument they use for calculating the time is the sun. And as you go more and more through this particular chapter, you'll see that the atoms begin to get bigger, and the time it takes for the sun to pass over those particular things, like there's a specific number of parts given in this particular purport, 1687.5. So to understand how all that works, I don't necessarily have that capacity. But this is a way that they used to calculate, starting from just the atom to the double atom to the hex atom, and now we're going into bigger things, and then we'll work our way all the way up to the days, the months, the years, the millennias, the yugas, and then in Brahma's life, in creation, annihilation, and all that. So it's all of these cycles and how would you say? I guess cycles that we see in our world, and some we don't even see. They're all able to be calculated through these different methods that they used to have back in the Vedic times. Since time immemorial, we've wanted to be able to understand what's going on within the universe, and this is a big part in being able to understand or predict what's going to happen in the future. Like we can go to our phone and look at what time the sun's going to rise in 2 weeks, and it'll tell you, because the precision that the universe works with is so accurate that we can predict the time the sun will rise in another 2 weeks. When we will get an eclipse. We just had an eclipse a couple of days ago. Things like this, it's all predictable, because the main bodies within the universe, they're working under some order, some plan. And because of that order, then there's a predictability to it. There may be certain elements within the universe that don't necessarily work, say like a comet, but even those, they have orbits, so they can predict when they'll come back again through, but they're not necessarily something we see that commonly. But so this world, looking at it from a scientific perspective, which is what is happening here, is deducible down to an atom and expandable out to the universe itself. And within all of those scales, there's different ways that they measure things. So they have all these different terminologies. What is it? 6 such, Trasarenu means this hex atom, and then Trutis, and so they have different names, but they're just explaining different. So we have like decimal points and I don't know, trigonometry. You have all these different terminologies for doing our math. So this is the terminologies that they use back in Vedic times for calculating time through the solar system, through the universe. Even if you are a serious scientist and you're really looking to understand something of the reality of the world and think about the complexities of this world and how everything is moving and going on. So precisely. These days, a lot of scientists will at least accept the concept of intelligent design. They may not accept, like, there's a God doing everything behind the scenes, but they'll at least accept that the complexity, or even of the atom, before, say, when Darwin was formulating his theory of evolution, the understanding of the atom was very basic. But as like microbiology and all these different forms of science have progressed, they've come to understand that there's a complexity of just a single atom that is mind-boggling. And for something of just the atom to happen by chance, it's impossible. There's so many different components to an atom. And if you go by the theory of evolution, then there has to be some kind of a mutation, some kind of change, which has some benefit to the organism, which will then lead it to have some advantage over the original form, and something begins to change in that way. But what they found as they researched more and more and been able to study the atoms more and more with all their microscopes and stuff, is that in order for an atom to function, some of the components, if it was a gradual evolution, some of the components just can't just go from this to that. It has to have been formulated or produced in its entirety for the whole thing to work. So from our building blocks, from atoms, all the way up to, our bodies are very sophisticated pieces of machinery. The complexities, of our eye, of our brain, of so many simple things within our body, it's mind-boggling. And we're trying to reproduce this kind of thing with AI technologies now, but in some ways they can mimic some aspects of human nature, but in many ways they can't also, because there's this thing we call consciousness, which is a different element to anything from this world. And consciousness doesn't act, or can't be seen or measured or weighed, or what color is it. We can't experience it empirically. So therefore although we have the experience that we have consciousness, so they know it's there, but empirically we can't prove it. We can't say, okay, a piece of consciousness is this big, a piece of consciousness weighs this much, or looks like this. We can't do that. Although we are aware of this faculty of consciousness. Of course, there's theories on how consciousness arises. Again, those theories for some time has some validity, but again, as the research is becoming more and more complex, there are finding that those kind of concepts and ideas, they don't hold true. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains very simply that consciousness is a symptom of the soul. And he gives an example that we can understand how consciousness is a part of the soul. So he says, just as the sun emanates its heat and light through the universe, coming from one source. In the same way, the soul situated in the heart, emanates consciousness through the body. So when a soul is present in a body, the light and the heat coming from that soul, in the analogy, is the consciousness. So consciousness pervades the body because there is a soul present. It's the production of the consciousness is coming from the soul. And in our conditioned state, that is the problem we have. Our consciousness has been conditioned or polluted. So Krishna consciousness is a process by which we take that conditioned consciousness and we shake it up, put it in a wash machine, and we purify it. So if we have pure water in a cup and we put something in that water, the water becomes changed or contaminated in some way by whatever it is we put in there. But if you want to purify that water again, then all we really have to do is remove the impurities, and then we're left with pure water again. So Krishna consciousness, our process is about doing that. It's about removing all the impurities from our consciousness, and then we'll just be left with our pure state again. It's a gradual thing, it doesn't happen overnight, but the process works. Me sitting here on a seat of esteem is proof of that. But yeah, we have seen in our lives how by applying the process sincerely has an effect on our consciousness. And we can, we can forget that sometimes. We get caught up in our service and doing what we do in our day-to-day lives, and we don't necessarily see the change in our consciousness, in our behavior, in our thoughts, in our actions. But if we can sit and just occasionally think back to how we were a few months ago or a year ago, and that's when we can see and experience that change that has taken place. Bhakti is about transformation, and it's about transforming our heart. Right now, our hearts, because of the lives and the how would you say, the toughness of life out there, we've had to protect our heart. So we have this hard layer, hard casing around it. And it's a protective mechanism so we can not get hurt. And just to live outside, we have to harden up, toughen up, princess, as they say. It's a thing. Everybody's got their agenda, got their motives and needs, and they're willing to do whatever it takes to get whatever they need. So that means that people will take advantage, they will cheat, they will do all kinds of stuff to fulfill their desires. So when we come to devotional service and Krishna consciousness, we do come with that same kind of mentality, but as we take up the process, we begin to feel a peace and satisfaction. That's the first thing. It says in the Nectar of Devotion, that's the first benefit of taking to devotional service and Krishna consciousness, is that we feel some relief. As relief, so we feel a little peaceful, a bit satisfied in ourselves. And with that peace and satisfaction, we can begin the process of softening our hearts again. And you see devotees who really have been around for a long time and have gone through the process. They have this sweetness and softness about them that it's tangible. You can see it and feel it. So yeah, it happens for all of us. Of course, that depends on how we apply the process, how fast that happens. The more diligent we are, then of course faster things happen. But in the holy name and devotional service always has an effect, but the efficacy of that effect is more profound when we put everything into it. When we have some sincerity, when we have some love, some devotion, it's more powerful. All right. Maybe I'll stop here. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Let me get the other mic.
Come to the class. So you're speaking about how predictable the world was at the start of the class, and I was kind of thinking, trying to apply it to my own life and see how predictable all our journeys are, even before kind of Krishna consciousness, and how predictable it is that someone's going to come to Krishna consciousness, and then like predictability once you actually take up the path. Just kind of wondering whether you had any more insight on how predictable our journeys are.
All that stuff is not very predictable. I mean, more of the mechanistic aspect to the universe. There's a predictability to that, but as conscious souls, we can choose. We can do whatever we want. So, of course, you know, there is a certain level of predictability according to our state of consciousness, but you know, someone in the mode of ignorance will predictably choose a certain way, but they don't have to choose like that all the time. At some point they'll get to a situation where they're just like, I can't do this anymore. And then there's the whole process of trying to get out of the mode of ignorance. So predictability is there to some degree, but because we have free will, because we are conscious beings, we can look at ourselves and say, I'm not doing this anymore, and we can change. We can change. You know, we're proof of that change. We're all here. We're all doing all kinds of stuff not so long ago. And now we're living a different kind of lifestyle. You know, we may have done some things in our previous lives which have given us some kind of benediction to be able to take the Krishna consciousness. But still we have to choose. Krishna will give us the opportunity, but it's still up to us to choose yes or no. And he's happy with whatever, because, you know, he gives us our free will and he doesn't interfere with that. Of course, he's probably, you know, a little disappointed when we don't accept him in our life, but he's okay with that. He's not an envious God like we might hear of sometimes in other traditions. Krishna's pretty self-satisfied, and it's actually for our benefit that we want, you know, we come and invite him into our lives. It's not for his benefit, it's for our benefit. Yeah. But again, it's all up to us with our choices. Yeah.
I was just going to say about the different yugas and
the battery's there. Use this one.
Was that predictable?
It's kind of predictable.
Yeah, just about different yugas and stuff like this also. That means that we are all kind of, we've not achieved, we've gone back to Krishna and all the different yugas, so we're kind of like last of the bunch, you know. So it's kind of predictable in the sense that we're going down and then it all goes back into Krishna and then comes back again and so I just that kind of relate to it.
Yes.
Because we're all still, you know, we're all like in kind of the thickness of the ignorance in Kali Yuga. So.
Yeah. Well, again with the yugas, there is a predictability of the behavior of the souls during those particular yugas. And yeah, like Kali Yuga, we're in the bottom end of the yuga cycles. So yeah, our behavior to some degree is predictable in the different yugas. But still, there's bad guys in Satya Yuga. You know, there's Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. They just like there's trash in the place, and that's Satya Yuga. And like Kali Yuga, of course, there's a bigger percentage of the souls doing the wrong thing, and it just becomes like normal. That's the predictability that doing the wrong thing is right. But as we kind of see the futility in that and want to change our life, then, you know, generally we don't, like I remember when I first got to that point, it's like, what's life? What's the purpose of life? What's all that? What's it all about? It's like, where do you go from there? It's like, there's no choices. Nobody has many choices. But you just got to keep digging and digging and find other options and do other things. And slowly, you know, I met the devotees and then I could make a choice still. Nah, not going to do that. Sounds a bit too hard for me. Well, maybe I'll give it a try. So, you know, the destiny and free will thing it's always a thing. There are some things determinable or predictable, but then the free will agent of the soul is always there also. So we are predictable in our more sort of behavioral, more like animalistic capacities. But at the same time, especially as human beings, like we have this faculty of intelligence where we can think about stuff and change our behavior and change our mindsets and grow and change. So yeah. Prabhu.
When Lucas asked you this question, something came up in my mind. I just wanted to share some statements. Maybe it's completely off. So the more material desires we have, the more
Predictable.
Yeah.
The more we're entrenched in the mode, especially the lower modes, we're much more predictable. Because the animalistic propensities are more so, you know, eating, sleeping, mating, defending. That's our life. But if we get to the mode of goodness, or occasionally get to the mode of goodness, then we can do something. Anton, you had a question?
Thank you for the last Krishna Gana, prabhu. It's a very interesting topic. I may have a few technical questions. Well, first question about measure of time and calendar. We have a problem. The sun and moon rotate a little bit differently, so we have to have a leap year every 40 years. We use Vedic calendar, and Vedic times they calculate the days and times. It seems like celebration moves, Janmashtami is going on to moves every year. How do they solve that problem, or is it just keep moving?
Well, they add in an extra month. I think it's every 5 years, 4 or 5 years. So this year was one of those years, like in Western astronomy, they have the leap year. So in Vedic times, because a month is only 30 days, all right? So yeah, they add an extra month. So there's 13 months this year.
Wouldn't that throw things out by 1 month altogether?
You have to check with someone who knows a bit more about it. But,
in our calendar, we would have leap year, we would have to add an extra day every 4 years.
It's the difference between lunar and the solar.
yeah, see the Vedic system is run off the moon, not the sun. That's why everything changes. So the only, like in Western astronomy, the only festival that is still running off the moon is Easter. That's why it changes every year. But everything else has been set to the sun. So Christmas is 25th of December, blah, blah, whatever it is. But the Easter is the only one that's still running from the moon. So in Vedic astronomy, it's everything is done by the moon. So, like, I'm no expert on all this stuff, sorry, but if you want to speak to someone, maybe like David Gorahari, he'll be able to explain it, or someone else. Anyone here know anything about astrology? Astronomy? But yeah, that's all how it all works. But I know there's a special month. So every 4 or 5 years there's an extra month. Because there's only 360 days in a year, not 365 as in the Western way. So every 5 years it'll be 30 days. So.
Thank you, prabhu. Second question I have is in relationship of metta and consciousness. So we learned that atom behaves in a particular way. The question is, does atom have consciousness?
Does atom have a consciousness? Yeah, well, anything that has life and there's a procession, like a sequence in life, there's a soul present there. Also a super soul present there. So yeah, in every atom there's a soul and a super soul. Not a very fun body to have, I guess. But yeah. All your microorganisms, little germs and stuff, yeah, all that. Maybe the atom itself, like in the expansion of Kashira Dakasha Vishnu, he says that Krishna, in that Vishnu form, he enters into every atom as a super soul. And in the hearts of all living entities as a super soul also. So definitely super soul is within the atom. maybe soul, not 100% sure. But within the micro, anything biological that has a sequence, taking birth, there's some growth, there's some offspring, there's a dwindling period, and then they pass away. Anything that has that sequence of events, then there's a soul present in that body.
Material objects that don't seem to have life as those that sequence is over.
Sorry?
Do any of the material objects have soul?
Like mountains or something, you mean, or?
Mountain, so on, you know.
Well, like many indigenous cultures, they have an understanding that there's souls present in different natural features. And in Vedic understanding, not everything, but there is particular mountains, particular things that do have souls present, yeah.
Those which are growing.
Yeah. I mean, Govardhana Hills is a good example. And some mountains grow, some mountains getting smaller.
So, for example, the bottom of Krishna block is shadow.
Conch shell.
Conch shell, and conch shell has a name.
Mm-hmm.
That's so.
Well, that conch shell is spiritual in nature, so it's conscious. Yeah, it's a spirit soul that's taken the form of a conch shell. It's for Krishna to blow it. Yeah, that's a different thing to the material concerts that we have on the altar here. Although these are being used in Christian service, they have now been transformed spiritually, but there's not necessarily a soul present in those conches thinking about.
One did one differentiated that shell as a soul and the other shell doesn't.
Sorry, can you say that again?
What process would you use to differentiate which shell has a soul and which shell doesn't have a soul?
Well, in the example you gave of Krishna's conch shell, he brought that from the spiritual world. So it's the soul, its form is a conch shell. That's what its role, that's what its service is in the spiritual world, is Krishna's conch shell. It's fully spiritual in nature. Where the conch shells we have here on the altar, although they're made from material elements, because they're being used in Krishna service, the spiritual nature of those things is also there. Everything is spiritual in nature at its essence, but how we view it and how we use it will determine whether it's material or spiritual. So I would say there's no soul present in those particular conches, but I'm open to be corrected.
Thank you very much for explaining it. That's one last question. The modern science looks at atoms and time, and they actually have a time watch as well, so they can measure the distance and travel to make super. But the modern science determines that gravity affects both matter and time in a very important way. And it helps that, like, they discovered that if you put a clock in space, where there is no gravity, the time will go differently. Does Bhagavatam describes any relationship about gravity and time, or anything about gravity?
Well, there's, like we just read not long ago, actually, in the couple of chapters before this. Oh, hang on. That was in Canto 5. I was reading that somewhere else. It says that the planets are held by, not by gravity, but by Krishna's energies. Gravity is obviously one of those energies. So, in, say, the modern understanding of, the planets of moving around the sun, there's some kind of an orbit there, and there's a gravitational field which is holding the planet in a particular orbit. In Vedic understanding, that's not necessarily the principle that is holding it in orbit. There's other things going on. But yeah, it said the planets are held by Krishna's energy. But gravity, of course, is one of the principal things that we can experience on this planet anyway. And it is different on other planets. And time is different on other planets also, according to our state of consciousness. As you go higher within the universe, the concepts of time change. So, like for example, 6 months of our time on this planet is 12 hours for the demigods on their planets. And if you go further up, the time scales get much bigger. So gravity may affect things, definitely affects things in this world, but consciousness can affect things in a much more profound way, actually. And there's quantum physics is really proving some of these things more and more now. How someone focuses on an object, and then that object, there's a famous experiment that happened, about it. So there was, the two atoms, there was some impetus put on one atom and the other atom reacted in the same way. So there's, consciousness has a much higher, is able to affect things much more than gravity. Gravity is predictable. You drop something, it's going to fall in a certain rate. And, there's the old saying, if you've got a kilo of feathers or a kilo of apples, will they fall at different rates? But if it's a kilo of this and a kilo of that, it should fall at the same rate because of the weight. There may be some wind resistance because the bag of feathers is going to be bigger, but if it's a kilo, by definition, it should fall at the same rate. I've never done the experiment, but you would think that. So gravity has predictability aspect to it because it's part of what I was mentioning before, the synchronicities of the planet and the universe. So gravity has a role to play in that, for sure. Yeah. I don't know if that answered your question. All right, very much. Thanks for your questions. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki. You have a Prabhupada?